remember your virtue. You'll Be Gone by RDM Fave Clips. Category: My Hero Academia. Pairings: Midoriya Izuku and Midoriya Hisashi. Midoriya Izuku and All Might. Midoriya Izuku and Aizawa Shouta. Midoriya Hisashi and Ryuko Tatsuma and Shinya Kamihara. Ryuko Tatsuma and Midoriya Izuku. Rating: Teen. Summary: 12 years Inko has purposefully kept Hisashi away from Izuku, ignoring the court order that says Izuku is supposed to spend most of his time with Hisashi while she was supposed to have him on the weekends. However, someone finally finds him, and Izuku is reunited with his father, but because of the situation, not many people know about it. Izuku is just glad to be with his father finally. Disclaimer: I do not own the rights to My Hero Academia or the song You'll Be Gone by Yun Agor. I highly recommend you listen to the song on YouTube. There are a few trigger warnings for this. One would be kidnapping, and experimentation on adolescents. Along with one point in this fanfiction where violence is used. I do not know this song, so I will not be even attempting to sing it. I'll try linking the song in the description, but it's pretty iffy if I can get a link to go through. Story begins. Ryuko Tatsuma loves her family. She is almost always the first one to go meet any new little hatchlings to put her scent on them, to introduce herself because she knows herself better than anyone else. And if something happened to any member of her family, she's the scary aunt who will tear apart flesh from the bone to save them. She also trusts her nose, instincts, and gut. When meeting a potential significant other of a family member, and when her older brother, her favorite brother and closest friend, brought home his at the time girlfriend, Tatsuma did not trust her. No one listened to Tatsuma at the time because the girlfriend was so sweet and made her brother happy, like no one else ever did. It seemed like a dragon fairy tale type of romance, and Tatsuma's suspicions only rose. It finally came to a head one day when Hisashi had called in tears. Inko's pregnant, Tats. She's pregnant with my dragonlet, and she firmly believes it's not mine. But I can smell it. The dragonlet is mine, her brother said in hysterics. I don't know what to do. Hisashi, calm down. The first thing you are going to do is get a lawyer. Then that lawyer, if they are doing their job right, will demand a paternity test when the baby is born. And also make a legal document citing that as a dragon parent for a potential dragon child, you are to be there for every appointment because she has no right until it is proven in the court of law that the dragon parent will be harmful to their dragon child. To keep you away from your child, Oh, what? To keep you away from your child. However, get a lawyer that knows the dragon laws inside and out, because they will be Inko's worst nightmare. And a good chance you'll get full custody of your dragonlet, Tatsuma, Hisashi said. She listened to him take a few deep breaths, and then with a determined voice her brother spoke again. Tatsuma, will you be my lawyer against Inko? Hisashi said. I was hoping you would ask. I would love to, big brother, Tatsuma said as a dragon smile crept into her face. Onto her face. That was 16 years ago. And it was 12 years ago that they last saw the baby hatchling before his mother kidnapped him and disappeared without a trace. 12 years since Tatsuma decided on being a hero in Japan, keeping her lawyer status a secret as she focused on her hero career. 12 years since Hisashi became an international hero to try and get a better scent of his missing son in hopes of finding him while reuniting other families with their missing children. It was a month ago that she smelled a faint trace of her missing nephew on her beloved work intern student, Hado Nejire. A month ago, she took on 2 more intern students, Yuraka and Asui, and the scent was fresh. Was so fresh that she had to restrain the dragon in her to not come out and question the 2 new interns. Yuraka and Asui were in contact with her nephew, which meant he was alive, and that he was going to UA. She had hope, but she wasn't going to call her brother yet. She needed to focus on this trigger case and upcoming meeting with Nide's agency. If it's been a while since you watched or read anything about Trigger in the My Hero Academia universe, it is a drug that will enhance a user's quirk for a brief amount of time. Such as that one guy that Kirishima was fighting against with the knife quirk that allowed him to sprout knives from parts of his body. Usually it would be much smaller than the literal feet that came out of the guy, or during the overhaul raid where the guy was not overhaul, but the guy that could usually only control an object that was solid about the size of a refrigerator. Instead of being only able to do that, he was able to control and manipulate multiple, like an entire hallway or so. That is where Rocklock, skip a few seconds if you haven't watched that far ahead yet, where Rocklock was stabbed by Toga. Anyways, it was a month ago that she saw her nephew for the first time in 12 years, and she didn't know what to do because her emotions were everywhere. Izuku Midoriya was her missing nephew. He was a classmate of her 2 new student interns. He was a part of this case. Die. Yeah, killed it. As he came into direct contact with Overhaul and his daughter. Not daughter. His, niece. Eri is Overhaul's niece. he was alive. She wanted to snarl at Rocklock for being blunt and commenting that if they did the job right, they would have ran with the girl. Not possible in that situation, but go off, I guess. She wanted to show dominance against Night-Eye, who said he was to blame for their actions, but the way his eyes glanced over to Tokita with pride but disappointment when his gaze lingered on Midoriya, like it was all the first year's fault, and the way Eraserhead tensed up at that showed that she wasn't the only one who noticed such blatant scrutiny. She took a deep breath and nearly choked as the scent of Midoriya was still that of fresh mint, but he still had that underlying smell of a newborn that a dragon kid loses at the human age of 5. And the cold stench of death was strong. Some clothes from the wire. He was still just a baby dragon and severely undeveloped. She excused herself during the break to make a phone call, dragging Fat Gum with her so he could be included. Tatsuma was going to make that woman pay for everything and this will be her primary case after the Hisashi case. Ryuko, this is Edshot said as he answered his phone. Edshot, I also have Fat Gum with me, because I'm trusting you two on a case with me, Tatsuma said. You both know how I have been trying to find my missing nephew. Sky is overcast, and I'm sorry. One more or one less. Nobody's worried. I'll believe it all. Anyways. Yes, of course. Did you finally get a lead? Fat Gum said. Better. I found him alive about 30 minutes ago, Tatsuma said. He's a first-year work intern under Sir Night-Eye. I'm asking you and Edshot to investigate everything you can about Midoriya Inko and all of her contacts, while Fat Gum and I work on the Hisashi case with Sir Night-Eye. I'm not going to say anything yet to Izuku for the mere fact I think he's currently overwhelmed and I need to investigate Sir Night-Eye myself. Huh? Why? Fat Gum said. I think he's blaming Izuku for not taking the little girl. I think he's overall disappointed in Izuku and making sure that he knows it, Tatsuma said. He's so undeveloped in his dragon genes that the smell of death is almost covering everything else, which is why I'm calling now. I'm in, Fat Gum said. Kirishima talks about Midoriya's analysis, and that's why I thought Sir Night-Eye took him in. You will need to get the principal involved, Edshot said. Your nephew is one of his students, and he'll be able to find more digital content that can be evidence and likely find out when and how she was able to kidnap your nephew. I plan on it, especially since I don't think that woman realizes how sacred dragons are in Japanese culture, and I plan on exploiting every law possible to get her behind bars, Tatsuma said with a snarl. Why are you hanging on so tight? This is my last mission. What? Torch, are you sure? You're the top underground hero worldwide, and you're still so young. My sister called. She found my son. I am retiring as a hero, so I can try and reconnect with my son, who's been missing for 12 years. My son, who is the only reason why I became an international hero to try and find him. Says that he smells like a baby dragon. The rankings had never mattered to me. I just didn't want families to suffer as long as I have without seeing their children, without having that closure. My eyes are bursting. Damn it. What are you going to do for work then? You have no backup plan. Don't know about that, but I do know that I'm going to work on being there for my son. I hardly used any money, so I have more than enough saved back to take care of us both for a while. However, my son will always come first, and I will support his dreams, whatever they may be. The Shihasaki raid ended, and Tatsuma kept a close eye on her nephew, because watching him with Eri fight Overhaul scared her. That was her nephew doing the impossible of fighting Overhaul, that even if All Might in his prime worked alongside Endeavor, would have trouble defeating. That was her nephew unleashing untrained lightning as he fought like lightning that shouldn't even exist, because that was dragon lightning, and he's still a baby dragon. His bones cannot handle that right now. She also watched over his room to see if his mother ever visited. No signs of Inko Midoriya, which only added more charges she was pressing. But thankfully, as of right now, Eraserhead was the acting guardian to him. Tatsuma stared at the door in front of her and took a deep breath as she remembered the conversation she had with her sweet nephew just before she left the hospital to come here. "You're my Aunt Tatsuma, aren't you?" Midoriya said, stopping her in the halls. "You smell like her, at least from the hints of scents I can gather." "I am." "I'm sure you have a lot of questions, don't you?" she said. "Yes. But I just need 3 to be answered now. My mom. My memory isn't really playing tricks on me, but she really did kidnap me when I was younger, didn't she?" Midoriya said, his hands tightening on the case that held his torn up costume. Tatsuma sighed. She knelt down on one knee to be at his eye level. "Yes, she did. I know. I really shouldn't be telling you this now, considering Night Eye's death is still on your mind, and the whole raid. But you deserve to know this. I'm on my way with Fat Gum, Edshot, and a few police officers to arrest your mother." "Midoriya, you are part dragon, and your mother neglected so many things that you needed." "I thought so. I always had a feeling that there was something different about me, and whenever I tried to bring it up to Mom, she always brushed it off," Midoriya said, looking down. He looked back at her. "What's going to happen to me now?" Tatsuma wanted to reach out and wrap her arms around him in a hug and not let him go. However, the dragon hierarchy would frown upon that since her brother very much wants to be a part of his life. What's going to happen is that you will be staying at your school now under their temporary guardianship, Tatsuma said. "The case is going to be kept quiet due to you being a minor. An apparent target of the League of Villains, and part dragon for your safety, so not many people outside of those directly involved will know that UA will be your temporary home, and while others will think you just wanted to stay at the dorms. In fact, All Might, Eraserhead, and most of the staff won't know about this until it becomes relevant. Your father is tying up some of his own loose ends before he moves here to Japan to be here with you, Tatsuma said, with a smile. Izuku. Mido. Izuku. You're my aunt and your family. Besides, I'm not going to be a Midoriya. Wait, my dad is moving here because I'm here? What? Izuku, your dad has been looking for you for 12 years. This is all you know, and a familiar area. You are the most important person to him, Tatsuma said, standing up. If everything goes smoothly, he'll be here in a month. Sail alone, there is no crew. Huh? Captain, let's make a deal. Damn it, I don't have my glasses on. She sighed and looked at her nephew fondly. I would love to give you some physical affection because I can smell how touch-starved you are. Same, bro. But the dragon parent has to have a stronger sense on their child if they haven't been abandoned. However, as soon as my brother gives me permission, I am going to hug you and smother you in attention, Tatsuma said. Where's my cat? She's probably on the cat tree. Thank you for everything. Later, would it be okay if I asked you about your quirk? Would he allow me to ask about Midoriya? Aizawa said, walking up to his student. You really need to learn to restrain your quirk-related questions until you are in a better location in time. Ryuko is a popular hero and has some things that need to be done. We also need to be on our way to UA. It's no trouble, Eraserhead, Tatsuma said. I'll always be happy to talk about the different dragon quirks. It's refreshing, really, but I do have another case that needs my attention immediately. She turned to face the underground hero. Don't worry. My work interns from UA will have time to rest after this case. They won't be involved in my next one. None of you limelight heroes know how to relax, Aizawa said with a sigh. Let's go, Midoriya. Tatsuma felt a nudge on her side and looked to see Edgeshot staring at her. You ready? He signed to her. Oh, I love languages. I don't really need to learn how to... Okay, anyways. She allowed her dragonic smile to show and nodded. I think that's how you say that word. And nodded her head. She looked back at her door and knocked on the door a few times. She waited when she heard, just a moment, come from behind the door, beyond the door. Sorry, fingers. Fuck. When the door opened, she stared down at Inko Midoriya, who stared at her with wide green eyes. Those green eyes showed that the portly woman recognized who she was. The green eyes flickered to the two pro-heroes, Edgeshot and Fat Gum, who flanked her sides, and the police officers behind them. Tatsuma held up a piece of paper that was and a wrist warrant. It's been a while, hasn't it, Inko? Tatsuma said. I hope you don't mind a little surprise home visit, especially since you're under arrest for kidnapping, child neglect, child endangerment, failure to follow court order, and that's just the laws that affect all humans. Inko focused her attention back on Tatsuma with a glare. Shall I list off all of the other laws that you broke now or at the station? Tatsuma said, matching Inko's glare with her own. When the cuffs went on Inko Midoriya, Edshot and Fat Gum helped the police gather Izuku's belongings. Tatsuma crossed her arms and stared down at the mother of her nephew. Before I forget, there is also a no-contact restraining order against you, so you cannot contact Izuku at all. But don't worry, my sweet nephew already knows. In fact, he even knew that you kidnapped him. His father has already been contacted and is making plans on moving to be with him. You will only see Izuku on television if he decides to continue his path on being a limelight hero. You would think Ryuko would be a Twilight hero. You know, half underground, half limelight. That would make, the most sense, right? Because she is in, a lot of underground operations as well as being a limelight hero. So wouldn't that translate to being a Twilight hero, like Midnight? I think she's I probably just headcanon that, though. Oh well. It's been a month since the arrest of his mother and being in the care of his school. A whole month of him being just a regular high school student going into heroics before news finally got out that he was no longer under his mom's care. News that he would have gladly talked to his fellow classmates about in private, but when did his childhood friend truly ever care about his opinions on matters? The answer was never. Midoriya was honestly surprised that the blowout took a month, and not directly after it happened. Deku, Bakugo shouted as he appeared in Ground Beta, where half of their class was waiting for the Heroics Foundation class to start. Aizawa and the skinny version of All Might, Yagi-sensei, stood in front of the students. Why the hell was Auntie arrested a month ago for kidnapping, huh? Everyone's conversations dropped as eyes moved to stare at the green-haired student who froze up. His green eyes widened as he took steps away from Ida and kept backing away from the approaching Bakugo. Kachan, I can't really talk about it, and even if I could, I wouldn't. I don't frickin' care about what you could or wouldn't do, Deku, Bakugo yelled, lunging for Midoriya. I'm having sex with a ghost. Anyways. He grabbed Midoriya by the front of his costume. I want answers now, Deku. And I know you know about it. So why the fucking hell is Auntie in jail with a wimpy, pathetic-ass public defender instead of All Might's lawyer on her kidnapping charges? Young Bakugo, that is enough, Yagi said sternly once he was finally able to find his voice. Let me go, Midoriya said at the same time as he tried to pull Bakugo's hand away. That's enough, Bakugo, Aizawa said, readying his capture scarf. It's 'cause she knows I'm alone. Let's play it cool. Sleeping with a second really cool. Damn, it's been an hour. Aizawa said, readying his capture scarf. Let Midoriya go this instant. Holy fuck. Like hell I will, Bakugo said with a growl. Final chance to answer before I blow your damn face off, Deku. Why don't you also explain as to why your ungrateful ass hasn't contacted her in a month, or why you haven't been trying to get her name cleared? Bakugo! Aizawa said, throwing his capture scarf, but it was too late. Bakugo's fist collided with Midoriya's face. The agonizing sound of bone breaking would have everyone stopping their fight, but it was the way Midoriya scampered backwards after Bakugo's arms were restrained by the capture scarf, forcing him to drop Midoriya. His green eyes looked wild with fear and anger as he clutched his nose with both of his hands, blood dripping from between his fingers. A week's worth of suspension, Bakugo, Aizawa said, with a snapping tone. We will. She kidnapped me from my father when I was 4, 12 years ago, but thanks for practically making me tell the whole class that I'm a kidnapped child. You, of all people, should know what it feels like. At least you had friends who were determined to save you. At least you still know that your family supports you and your dreams. At least you know your family. Midoriya got up and ran from the training ground. I'm sorry, what? Why does it say that I'm casting? I shouldn't be casting. Midoriya got up and ran from the training ground, lightning dancing on his skin to speed his process up, and it stuck out at anyone who tried to get in his way. Change back into your uniform for today, Aizawa said as he started to loosen his capture scarf. When I come back, it's going to be a refresher course over how to treat a victim of any type of crime. It would react badly to the slightest attempt of hesitation. You don't want really to see my Bruno work in his defense. Oops. Cardinal young my tears felt like gas. When I come back, it's going to be a refresher course over how to treat a victim of any type of crime, a lesson that was already covered once when Bakugo returned. I'm going to try and find young Midoriya, Yagi said. His glowing blue eyes stare in disappointment at the explosive teen. That stupid, useless Deku. He's always been trying to one-up me ever since we were little kids. I told him not to apply here, and he frickin' applies here. Now he's trying to claim that he was also kidnapped. Bullshit. Auntie loves that stupid Deku too goddamn much, Bakugo yelled. Aizawa's capture scarf tightened around Bakugo as he glared with all might at the student. Each situation is different, Bakugo. Because of that, you are coming with me to go see the principal to discuss this, Aizawa said. Young Bakugo, Midoriya has never tried to outshine you or your struggles. If only you would learn that, then maybe your relationship with him would improve. I flushed this man. I need to puke. Principal Netsu blinked at as his former student, Aizawa, walked into his office without knocking, carrying Bakugo in his capture scarf. Netsu usually didn't mind when his teachers visited him with a student who needs punishment that he needs to sign off on. However, he was in the middle of an important phone call, which he would have to delay. I'm sorry, Torch? One of my staff members came in with a student, and I'm afraid I must give them my immediate attention. When will be a good time to call you back? Netsu said. Any time will work with me. I don't have much left to pack, just the clothes I'm currently wearing. I really appreciate this, and I promise that as soon as I get checked into my hotel room tomorrow, I'll start working on getting my teacher's license, sir, Torch said over the phone before. Netsu pressed the button to end the call. Mom and Daddy are in love. That's fine. I'll settle for 2 birthdays. Double down is colder in the summertime. This is why I listen to classical music while I record. We'll make it another night. Sorry about that. What can I help you, the two of you, with? Netsu said. Bak. That stupid Deku is lying about Auntie kidnapping him. Why am I the one being punished, huh? He sounds like a fucking toddler throwing a fit. Bakugo said. Well, that wasn't good. I forgot my name again. Netsu looked at the clock and frowned. I see, Bakugo. How did you find out about Midoriya's charges? Netsu said, looking back at the explosive teen. The old hag called me in between classes. Auntie called her and explained everything about how she's in jail for kidnapping and that neither her own son nor his mentor was helping her, Bakugo said. So I confronted Deku before class started while we were waiting for the other slow-ass extras to show up. When he kept dodging the questions or taking too long to answer, I punched him in the face. Bakugo is neglecting to mention that Midoriya's nose is now broken, Aizawa said. The sun is colder in the summertime. All is my mind, illusion of 1,000 times. With you. Deku frickin' deserves for his freaking lies. Deku fucking deserves that for all his fucking lies. Paul slammed on the desk, white fur bristling. What is this? Oh, fucking hell, my eyes. White fur bristling on the as-beady black glare at the student who was now frozen. Are you victim-blaming your classmate, Bakugo? Midoriya has purposely been left in the dark over the case of his mother kidnapping him. 4 pro heroes were in charge of the initial investigation, and I'm one of them, just like I was for when the League had kidnapped you, Bakugo. It was in the best interest of Midoriya's health for him to not be in contact with his mother, so I was the one who sought out the no-contact restraining order against her. I was the one who called All Might's lawyer and advised him not to take her case, Netsu said, his tail lashing from side to side. Oh no. So what's going to happen is that your parents will be called and we will talk. They will be informed with the same information that I told you, but we will be discussing your punishment because Midoriya is a ward of UA right now. And you physically assaulted him. Your place in the heroics department is on a fine line right now. But let me make myself clear. Netsu stood on his desk, staring at Bakugo. No matter what type of punishment we decide on, with the input of young Midoriya, this will be a black mark on your permanent record, and if we keep you in heroics, then you might be doing extra classes, and you will be transferred to 1B. Are we clear? I said, are we clear, Bakugo Katsuki? Natsu said. Yes, sir, Bakugo said. Excellent, Natsu exclaimed as he nodded at Aizawa, who released Bakugo from the capture scarf. Is there anything else I can do to help you with, Aizawa? No, sir. At least not right now, Aizawa said. He was the underground pro-hero Eraserhead who valued logic above most things, but right now he was terrified of his boss and wanted to run out of the office. Excellent. Is Recovery Girl taking care of Midoriya? Natsu said. All Might went after Midoriya, so I hope so. I sent the class back to the classroom to do a study hall. I'll make sure to remind the class how to treat traumatized victims, Aizawa said, as his eyes glanced at Bakugo. The laws that are in place to protect the victim, the accused, and everyone else who is involved in the case. Excellent. Please excuse Midoriya from the rest of his lessons today, along with Bakugo. Midoriya is to go see Recovery Girl and then Hound Dog afterwards. Now, Bakugo. I'm going to brew some fresh tea. Call your parents, and while we wait for them to arrive, we will discuss what fabric is best suited for hero costumes, Natsu said. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Have y'all ever had a Fifth Avenue bar? They're delicious. They're like, Butterfingers, but better. I said it. Better. Anyways, Midoriya was tired. He was so tired. Oh, wait. Midoriya was tired. He was so tired of being alone, but he was tired of watching a figurative table tennis match between Aizawa and All Might, fighting over who gets to adopt him. It's been 2 months now, and according to his aunt Tatsuma and Natsu, his father would be here soon, which is making him nervous because it's been 12 years. What if his father doesn't love him anymore? What if his father abandons him because his mom must have had a good reason for kidnapping him and moving out of the country? What if his father was a villain? Fucking Facebook. Oh, thank you, little goat. Anyways. Midoriya, Natsu said, knocking on the door that gives Midoriya his own section of a dorm. May I come in? There is someone who I would like for you to meet. Sorry, there's thunder going off behind me. Yes, please, give me a moment, Midoriya said as he got off the floor, leaving his unfinished homework open on the table and rushed to the door. He opened the door and smiled. Hello, Prince. Midoriya blinked. He was eye level to the word fancy in English on a white shirt. Clawed hands were clicking against each other as they were being rubbed together. He slowly looked up and stared. Netsu was sitting on the tall man's shoulder. The dark green scales made not only Netsu's white fur stand out, but the man's toxic green eyes. They were getting misty. Midoriya will forever say that Netsu was the bravest soul on the planet, because if Midoriya was a tiny animal, he would not be sitting on the shoulder of a man that was easily taller than All Might, with a dragon head whose nostrils were exhaling smoke, while tiny specks of green flames flickered out of his mouth. Hi, Midoriya said before his eyes widened. Oh my tea, you're the pro hero Torch, the guiding light hero. You're claimed to be one of the most successful international heroes while still being underground. The man chuckled and moved his head, his dark green scale dragon tail. How did Midoriya miss that? It was like 4 feet long. Up in front of him and in an arched position. Yes, I was. I'm retired now. Recently retired. I'm hoping that won't be a problem. Netsu jumped onto the tail as Midoriya blinked. His hero fanboy mind was still gushing that Torch was his front door. Didn't hear the child part of him scream "Daddy" at him. Why would retirement be a problem? Midoriya asked. Midoriya Izuku, I would like to introduce you to Ryuko Hisashi, who is your father. Ryuko Hisashi is your son. This is your son, Midoriya Izuku. Netsu said. Dad? You're my dad? Midoriya said in shock. He nodded. Yes. Can I hug you? Like right now, please, Izuku? Ryuko asked. Ryuko asked. Huh? Oh, I've been saying that wrong all the entire time. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Oh, yes, please. Midoriya exclaimed as tears fell down his face. As soon as Izuku was pulled into Ryuko's chest, the tears became double waterfalls as Ryuko was also crying. However, Izuku clung to his father. The heat from the dragon just absorbing into Izuku's own body. The nuzzling of the snout against his green curls made him feel safe and sleepy as the chronic pain he's been in slowly vanished. Netsu hopped off Ryuko's tail with a smile and a hum. The tail instantly moved to curl around Midoriya in a strong grip as toxic green eyes stared at the principal. I'll be making my way out. This way, you two can get to know each other and get up on the missing 12 years. Oh, and get caught up on the missing 12 years. Netsu said. Thank you so much, Ryuko said, for everything. I had hope, but I never thought I'd be able to hold my son again. Netsu nodded. If I were you, I would introduce yourself to Yagi Toshinari and the Aizawa Yamada couple soon, but mostly Aizawa Shouta, as those two teachers have been fiercely protective of Midoriya and fighting with each other over who gets to adopt him. Netsu said. I understand, Ryuko said with a nod. I'll do that soon. But for now, Izuku comes first. My precious, fluffy mint ball will always come first. God, I wish I had a father. Midoriya let out a choked gasp. He moved his head up to look at Dad. I remember that nickname. You always called me that. And I will always continue calling you that, no matter how old you get, Ryuko said. All Might, or also known as Yagi Toshinari, was so proud of his successor, and he would have no problems adopting him as his own son. Unfortunately, he was having problems, which he called Aizawa, and the oh-so-secretive Midoriya Hisashi. That doesn't seem to exist. All Might can't wait until he meets Midoriya's father, because if he had a child, he would never stop looking for them and always made sure to have his contact open. But something positive has changed with Midoriya recently. His successor has gotten taller, his muscles have gotten leaner, but he's still just as, if not stronger. His arms look healthy, like they didn't break any bones at all. His fingers were no longer disfigured. Aizawa and All Might both tried to stop Midoriya from punching a rock at 32%, but his arm didn't break at all. Midoriya's speed had gotten fast, and the crackling green lightning could now strike out at opponents and make like a dragon shaped behind Midoriya. When his successor does use the lightning like it was his own quirk, his green eyes change to a toxic green color, while the pupils go into slits. It seemed like someone else was mentoring, teaching, helping his successor in ways he never could, and his first thought was Aizawa. Ryuko Hisashi knew that he could never have the same relationship with his son that he did before. He understands that 12 years is a long time. While the part dragon of his son is flourishing, catching up to the human part, he would never be the father figure that Izuku looked to his mentor as. However, if it was Principal Netsu who told him of All Might's secret about his quirk and how he gave his quirk to Midoriya. All Might's failing health and the secret behind One for All and its dark history. That is why he decided to introduce himself to the former hero first, because he matters the most to his son. He knocked on the door to Yagi's dorm room, his tail curling and uncurling around his legs as he held onto a book that looked like it had been through a lot. Hopefully, this will be a nice way to communicate with All Might and make his status as a protective dragon dad known. It's not like he wants to take time away that Izuku and Yagi share, and he still hasn't had much time with his own son, because Yagi keeps inviting Izuku away for supper and training. When the door opened and Yagi looked up blinking, Hisashi smiled, showing his pointy fangs. "Hello, Yagi-san. I was wondering if I could come in and talk to you about Izuku. He talks about you the most, and I wouldn't mind getting to know his favorite hero more. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, didn't I? I had this mental speech all planned out, and I flubbed it up. My name is Ryuko Hisashi, and I'm a retired hero just like you." "Okay," Yagi said, tensing up. "And how is it that you know young Midoriya?" Hisashi let out a sigh. "Can I come in?" "Absolutely not," Yagi said in a low tone. Hisashi looked at that lone tone as a challenge, so he stared at Yagi. He opened the book to the first page, and a clawed finger pointed at a picture of a blue blanketed blue blanket bundle with a tuft of green hair sticking out behind, being held by clawed hands. The next picture showed a small green curly-haired, freckled-faced baby asleep next to Hisashi's tail, his hands gripping on it. As years go by, Hisashi said, flipping ahead a few pages in the back. He stopped on pages that had pictures of a 3-year-old Izuku Midoriya sitting on top of Hisashi's shoulder, while staring in awe at a giraffe. So do his feelings. Hisashi flipped to the last couple of pages, which Yagi now realized was a baby scrapbook, and how detailed it was. Hisashi truly cared for his son, but none of the pictures had Inko in it, which made Yagi question how well he knew his successor's mother. A clawed finger tapped on a picture of Izuku giving Hisashi a crown while already holding onto a mug that read "Number 1, Hero Dad." When Izuku was only 4 years old, it must have been taken shortly before he was kidnapped. Why can't it stay just like before? Hisashi said. The next page in the book had the missing poster of Izuku Midoriya. The missing picture had a 4-year-old Izuku working on his coloring homework with his tongue sticking out. Above the poster were the words, "Izuku, when will you come back home?" Along the right side of the poster was a diagonal line. "I won't stop searching for you until you're home." And the left side was also going in a diagonal line. "I'll travel the world to find you." Underneath the poster were the words, "Daddy will always love you, my precious fluffy mint." Yagi took a deep breath as he noticed the drops of water damage on the page, and words weren't a part of the original design, but rather water damage from tears. "I'm just a father," Hisashi said, closing the book and holding it close. "Slay, you're adding to the atmosphere." Just like how Izuku holds his hero analysis for the future notebooks. And I know I'll never have the relationship that you do with him, or have the same relationship that we had before he was kidnapped. I also know that it will take a lot of time for him to even start caring about me. But I feel jealous. Hisashi stood up straight and stared at Yagi with When did they sit down? Oh, right. He was hunched over. And stared straight at Yagi with toxic green eyes that showed determination, the same determination that Yagi sees in Midoriya's eyes when he's facing a challenge or in a battle. Am I still listening? Yeah. Netsu told me about the secret of your past quirk, that you've given it to him, Hisashi said. It was only after I told him that I knew about it did he confirm that it's true. I understand that at the time, that the time you two spend together is precious, and I know how dangerous the quirk secret is, but I would like to ask some things of you. I would like it if you would let me join in on some of these training lessons, because I'm trying to connect with him, and I understand that all that's happened to him in the past 12 years. However, it seems like he cares about you more, because whenever you call or message him, he always goes to you. Netsu had no right to tell you about One for All, Yagi said, straightening up his shoulders. And just because you claim to be young Midoriya's father does not mean that I should trust you right away. You could just be someone impersonating him. If anything, I should have known about you spending who knows how long unsupervised time with him. Midoriya is going through a hard time right now. We both are, with the death of Sir Night-Eye. Izuku doesn't care about Sir Night-Eye. He cares about you, Hisashi said, holding back a roar. He told me that your sidekick kept trying to destroy his dreams. Did you know that your precious Night-Eye kept telling him that he wasn't worthy of one for all at least 5 times a day? That Night-Eye had him work harder and longer just to try and sabotage Izuku's grades so UA would have to pull him out? If it wasn't for Centipeter working for Night-Eye for so long and knowing his style, Night-Eye would have tried to take credit for the hero teams involved with the Shy Hisashi raid, Hisashi said, the roar coming out in the end. So go to Hound Dog or some other therapist to talk about Sir Night-Eye, because how can I say I'm happy for you when I'm trying to bring back the happy sunshine hero who will fight for what's right? When I'm the one who is making him confident in his skills and in himself. If you took him away from me, I will personally see to it that you will no longer have any time alone with him. I will accept the hate that Izuku might have for me, but he's already been brought down for 12 years, and I refuse to let him continue feeling like he is not worthy enough because you don't listen to his feelings or allow him to speak badly of a hero or a person. Hisashi took a step forward towards Yagi. This will be your last chance to get your head out of the sand and actually focus on his mental health and self-esteem. He's a child, and it is because of you that he believes Bakugo deserves to still be in Class 1A. That it is his job to save everyone, but when the time comes, who will be there to save my son? Hisashi said. Yagi watched as Hisashi turned and walked away. He clenched his fists together and yelled at the dragon, I don't believe you. I will talk with Natsu over this, but I used to be the #1 hero, the symbol of peace, so I doubt you'll be have much more power to truly prevent me from seeing young Midoriya. In fact, I would consider this behavior of yours unbecoming, abusive, and near helicopter. I wonder how that would hold up in court. Hisashi laughed. Don't you know? As a former #1 ranked international hero, and as a dragon parent, the courts will see that I'm more important. My love and flame is all he needs. Flame? Yagi said as Hisashi left. A glance at the camera that moved side to side showed Yagi that Natsu would not be on his side, and for some reason Yagi could feel Natsu's disappointment. At least, all the other teachers were teaching their classes, so no one could see the loss and defeat in Yagi's blue eyes. The rain in the background. I'm not sure if I have been controlling my level of speaking, but the rain in the background is just adding to the ambiance of my life. I absolutely love the rain. It's beautiful. It sounds wonderful. Is my cat still outside? She might be. Oh weren't tired. Ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't want trees. You talked to All Might, didn't you, Dad? Izuku asked one night as they both worked on their homework. There. Ah, right. Hisashi looked down at his son, who was cuddled into his side, the eye bags rivaling that of the brainwashing student. Hisashi hoped they would go away soon. I did. He's been calling you away for far too long and often. You've been overworking yourself to where you barely have time to do your schoolwork, socialize with your friends, or even sleep. Hisashi said as he ran his clawed finger through the gentle curls. I also know he's been venting to you about Sir Night-Eye, not letting you do the same. Gray smoke blew out of Hisashi's mouth, and Izuku laughed. He didn't need to push you so hard and so fast in training, but without a clear confession nor an obsession, you did what so many other people tried to do. You took his heart. You have his full attention, Hisashi said as his clawed fingers traveled to Izuku's sides and started to tickle him in between the ribs. You're an exception to All Might. Aren't you the luckiest of all? Aizawa was coming back from patrol with his senses on high alert. The League of Villains haven't made any moves. Criminal activity has gone down, which is usually a sign that a storm is brewing in the criminal world. Then the situation with Midoriya, and Aizawa really wants to talk to someone. Oh, and Aizawa really wants to talk to some people. The first person who would be Sir Night-Eye, as the investigation concluded that Ryuko started with Night-Eye's behavior, Midoriya. Even though the hero was dead, he did so much damage to his problem child that it was a wonder the kid seemed to be even more bright than before. They were lucky that Togata never lost his true self to be an All Might clone. The second person would be Inko Midoriya, because what good reason did she have for kidnapping her own son? What good reason did she have to get the Bakugo family involved, knowing that the youngest Bakugo was trying to convince her son to talk to her? Netsu must have his reasons for the no contact restraining order, otherwise he wouldn't have had one made. However, if Aizawa had to guess, it was something to do with how much his problem child had grown in such a short amount of time. It was like she had purposefully kept something vital from her son on purpose. The third person, All Might himself. However, it seemed like that was to be done tonight, as Yagi Toshinori stood by the entrance of UA. Ah, Eraserhead, are you done with your patrol tonight? Yagi asked as the Class 1A homeroom teacher jumped in front of him. I am. Why? Aizawa said, crossing his arms. Have you claimed defeat and allow me to adopt Midoriya next week if his father doesn't show himself? I would never, Yagi said before he shook his head. So his father hasn't introduced himself to you yet? That's interesting. You've met his father? Yes. Tall dragon, toxic green eyes. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Netsu was talking to Torch when I brought Bakugo to his office, but that's impossible. To become an international hero, you must not have a spouse or kin. It's one of the laws. However, there are a few exceptions. You know this hero? He's a role model of mine of sorts. Just give it up, Yagi. Give up? This is the third attempt you've made to try and convince me that his father has been found. Yagi spluttered and tried to defend himself. Now, Aizawa, listen here. So 1, 2, 3, you're out, said Aizawa said. Isn't that how that American baseball saying goes? By now, would you agree that you're the only enemy? Because if you would quit interfering with me trying to talk to him and about adopting him into my family, we would be on better terms. My husband loves it. Hitoshi is fine with it, and Iri loves the idea of being her hero's little sister. Nothing else is really stopping me except for the missing father, and you're the only reason that he's not staying with me. I feel like you are teasing me, Yagi said, narrowing his blue eyes. I am being serious. His father introduced himself as Ryuko Hisashi, a relative of the pro hero Ryuko. Doubtful. Dragons are protective of their families, and I'm sure she would have made it known that Midoriya was in fact her nephew. Besides, Midoriya has nothing linking him to being part dragon, Aizawa said as they walked to the teacher's dorms. Honestly, Yagi, what if I told everyone, that you're starting to go crazy? It would be a rumor just for fun. Then wait a week, and I'm sure you'll be gone. Aizawa, you will not be able to adopt young Midoriya, Yagi said. This is not a laughing matter. Just a week, and I'm sure you'll be gone. Especially when I talk to Netsu and Midoriya about it. Especially since you convinced Midoriya to give Bakugo another chance at being a hero when he doesn't deserve it. Not after he attacked Midoriya and treated Midoriya about Midoriya being kidnapped. Aizawa looked at the retired pro hero with a disappointed stare. It makes me wonder, how many times did you intervene to keep Bakugo out of true trouble, and how many times did you not intervene because you wanted Midoriya to prove something to you? Honestly, Yagi, I know you're learning, but if you have selected Midoriya to be your successor, please quit sending him and everyone else mixed signals. The next person Ryuko Hisashi has to meet was Izuku's favorite teacher, and second favorite hero in Japan, who just so happens to be Hisashi's overall favorite hero. Aizawa Shouta, or better known as Eraserhead, Hisashi. Hisashi was beyond nervous. It wasn't like he was going to ask for an autograph yet, but really just to talk to him. Father to father type of talk. Mythical types of quirks, especially the mutation kind, where the quirk doesn't care and doesn't come from either parent, are so hard to understand that Hisashi wants them to know that he's there to help, because dragons and unicorns have always been closely linked. And he has a feeling that little Eri and Izuku have imprinted on each other since they first met. It's why they are so close to each other, why they see each other as siblings. Hisashi gently slapped his cheeks. As he got lost in his thoughts, he needed to focus and not make a fool of himself in front of Eraserhead. He didn't want to embarrass himself or Izuku. Izuku would never forgive him. Never. Hisashi didn't want that, as he already pushed it with all might. You're super tall, a little girl said. Hisashi looked down and saw the most adorable and cutest girl in the whole world. She had her neck craned back as far as she could. Her light blue, wavy hair made a small puddle on the floor. Her cranberry eyes stared wide-eyed at him. Hisashi chuckled. Yes, I am. But you are also super small, he said. How would you like to be tall for a while? Zawa says I shouldn't talk to strangers. But you share the same warmth as Deku. And I don't feel scared. She said, Oh, you know Deku? She nodded her head. Yes, he's my hero. The girl was precious. Well, Deku is my son, and he's been talking a lot about a beautiful unicorn princess named Eri. He claims she's the purest. He spun her around in a circle with his arms outstretched to emphasize his next words. All of Japan. My eyes. Fuck. He turned back around and faced her. Do you perhaps know where this fair lady is? That's me, Eri said with stars and tears in her eyes and the biggest smile on her face. Well, I must have luck on my side, he said. He moved his tail to be in front of Eri. You are far too low to the ground for me to bow down to you. So if the fair maiden would be so kind as to sit on my tail, then I can raise her up to bow to her properly, and maybe have a chance to kiss the lady's hand. When Aizawa turned the corner, he was not expecting to see his foster, soon-to-be adopted, daughter in the air, sitting on a green scaled tail. He was also not expecting to see the owner of the tail bowing to her as she laughed. Deku is as kind as he is wise, the tail owner said, for you are as pure and beautiful as he says. Aizawa is not going to let that slide, as the tail owner was flirting with his daughter. I see it. I see where he's coming from. I don't see that Hisashi is flirting with Eri, because he's not. He's just playing with her. But if I were Aizawa, and I would see this completely out of context with some weird man playing with my child, and just complimenting her and bringing up her favorite hero, I would think the worst, because low-key, I'm a pessimist, which means to be thinking of the worst possible case of all time at all times. But clearly Hisashi is not trying to abduct or groom young Eri. He's just simply trying to get to know her. Henceforth, the playing around. He activated his quirk to help with the intimidation factor, and he used his feared teacher voice. Who the hell do you think you are, flirting with my daughter? Aizawa said. Zawa, Eri said in glee. Look at how tall I am. I can't really do a child's voice right now because... Oh, I'm craving marshmallows. No, it's 3 a.m. You can't eat marshmallows. The man stood up straight and turned around to face Aizawa. Aizawa was not going to blink at the fact that this man was 8 feet tall, or that he was the international pro-hero torch, or that the man moved his tail so Eri was closer to his head. Princess Eri. Is that really Eraserhead, the coolest hero in the land? The man asked. Nuh-uh. It's giving that one scene where Bakugo is insulting Izuku, and Izuku doesn't have a very good comeback, so he just says, nuh-uh. You know that one? Deku is the coolest hero in the land, Eri said. But Deku has already been confirmed to be a part of your circle of heroes, and he's my son. I can't be judging my own son, as I might be too kind to them, especially when I want to surprise my son. Then yes, Aizawa is the second coolest in the land, Eri said. Loki wondering if this creator has also, booted Mineta from the hero course. Like, I want to say, like, at least 50% of fanfiction writers do when they write a 1A centric My Hero Academia fanfiction. Aizawa blinked and watched as the tail moved, making Eri slide backward. My lungs are fine. Aizawa blinked and watched as the tail moved, making Eri slide backwards on it a little bit. He got his capture scarf ready, but didn't move as the tail changed into a sloped angle, causing Eri to slide down as she laughed. Toxic green eyes watching her in a fond expression that seemed familiar, but also sad. Izuku always loved using my tail as a swing or slide when he was younger, the man said. The green eyes moved to look back at Aizawa before he bowed to him. Thank you so much for protecting my son. Izuku Midoriya, as much as you have. He stood back straight. I know you were such an amazing hero, but to actually hear Izuku say you were his favorite teacher, I may have, Hisashi said and started to scratch the back of his head. Fanboyed a little. Okay, a lot. But I'm trying not to embarrass myself because I don't want to embarrass Izuku. But, you're so cool. There were so many times I wanted to come to Japan for a mission just to be on the same team as you. And, oh God, I'm rambling now. I really need to shut up, but at the same time, I really need to talk to you. However, I can't talk to you now because I'm maybe kind of in a fanboy mind now, and I really need to be in a father's mind. Hisashi took a breath. Let's not tell anyone about me just talking a mile a minute, just to try and stop myself from asking for an autograph. Honestly, how will he know about what happened? It isn't completely out of character for me to talk for a long amount of time, so if you can't speak a word at all, I should be fine. Do you have lungs? Aizawa said, cutting in, because you may think you're going to be walking away, but I'm not letting that happen. Toxic green eyes stared at Aizawa with a wounded dog look. And Aizawa was glad he was more of a cat person. Why not? Hisashi said. Simple. You haven't introduced yourself. You claim to be Midoriya's father with zero proof. You know who I am, and you, as far as I'm aware, are on UA grounds while not being a member of staff. It's a work in progress, Hisashi said. I have been working on my teacher's license with Izuku, but now that Yagi lied a little louder, and that it takes to be a hero to Izuku, what it takes to be a hero to Izuku without me knowing about it. Izuku's trying to be the better hero and help Bakugo get over his issue. It's not like Izuku already doesn't have enough of his own issues and everything else going on. Oh, not a fan of All Might? Aizawa said. I wasn't. But would you still be a fan if you knew what he told Izuku when they first met? Or thought that a good workout plan was to clean some beach for 10 months? Hisashi said. Anyway, I also would like to talk to you about Eri because Izuku and her already imprinted on each other. You imprinted on my daughter? As it turns out, dragons and unicorns are closely connected. Your name first, please. Oh, Ryuko Hisashi. But I'm also known as the Pro Hero Torch. I retired as soon as my sister called saying she found Izuku. Hisashi said. His clawed hands turned into fists. Smokes and green flames escaped his mouth and curled upwards. 12 years she stole me from me, and she almost killed Izuku because she refused to acknowledge that Izuku needed more than her to grow. Oh, I can't wait to see Inko fall. Maybe All Might didn't lie this time about Midoriya's father, and Aizawa wasn't going to complain. Dragons that are protective of their young are always good allies, and the fact that Problem Child's missing father turned out to be one of Aizawa's role models, well, Aizawa surely wasn't going to complain, especially if he had advice to give to him about Eri. I don't have patrol Friday night. My husband has the night off from the station. Why don't you and Midoriya come over for supper? Midoriya, Hitoshi, and Eri can do whatever while we talk, Aizawa said. Hisashi blinked. Why do I feel like I'm being threatened? Eri giggled as she took Aizawa's hands. It's because you are, she said. We will see you Friday, Aizawa said. Come by after school. Problem Child knows the way. How far am I? I'm back, bitches. I'm joking. Hisashi was nervous, but he had to look calm. He had faith in his sister's abilities as a lawyer. In fact, she won the first case against Inko, and he would have had full custody of Izuku while Inko would have supervised visits. But 16 years ago, he still had feelings for her. He allowed her to have Izuku on weekends with part custody because he trusted her, believing that she wouldn't hurt their son, but after 4 years she betrayed him. Now he was nothing but a frozen dead heart as he sits on his sister's side of the courtroom. The pro heroes, Batgum, Principal Nedzu, and Edshot sitting next to him, and he wondered if his sweet sister would mind if he investigated Edshot a little more, as he could smell the attraction between the two. Say! He moved his eyes to glance over at the other side of the courthouse, where those who supported the defendant or couldn't sit on the prosecution side because it was already filled were seated. He saw the Bakugo couple sitting over there, but he looked over at Inko, who was glaring at him. He wanted to glare right back, but he kept his eyes and face neutral. It wouldn't look good to let his dragon side loose minutes before the trial continued. The doors opened and he turned his attention back to the front. This is his sister's battle now. The defense have already played all of their cards, and from the way his sister smiled, the prosecution haven't even played their whole deck yet. The prosecution would like to call Midoriya Inko to the stand, Tatsuma said. Hisashi took a deep breath. He needed to hear the answers from her as to why she took Izuku away from him. Her lawyer had warned that being called to the stand would be unavoidable, that her reasonings for everything that she'd done would be called to question. But he was furious at her latest stunt of crying to Mitsuki about Izuku not helping her about her charges had severely damaged their chance of winning, that she had destroyed every single chance of winning that he had planned. She still had tricks up her sleeve. Inko Midoriya couldn't lose her temper. She had to continue playing the part of an over-emotional protective mother, and how she had done what she thought was right for her son. Midoriya-san, Tatsuma said. 16 years ago, when you first found out you were pregnant with your son, you tried to keep his father out of his life. You even claimed at the time that Izuku was not his father's child, implying that while you were in a relationship with Ryuko-san, you were cheating on him, correct? Inko gritted her teeth. Yes, that is correct, she said with a nod. Did you or did you not try to keep Ryuko-san from coming to the appointments? Yes, I did because I believed he wasn't my son's father, Inko said. I didn't want to burden him with a child that wasn't his. Tatsuma walked across the floor of the courtroom, her heels tapping against the marble floor. That's interesting. When you were in college in America, you were studying mutation quirks, specifically those of dragon types, or of dragonic backgrounds, correct? Yes. Objection. The prosecution is talking about the time before the kidnapped child was even born, the defense lawyer said, not seeing that he fell into a trap. Sustained. Prosecution, get to the point, the judge said. Tatsuma walked to her table and grabbed 2 stacks of papers. The point is that Midoriya-san could be considered an expert of draconic quirks and families for someone who is an outsider, Tatsuma said. She held up one of the papers. Here are 2 papers that Midoriya-san wrote for her college thesis. The first paper details specific traits of a dragon quirks. One of these traits was the dragon parent, specifically the father, can tell when their partner is pregnant. She also knew that Ryuko-san could tell that he was the father, meaning she purposefully tried to keep a dragon parent away from their child, even before they were born. The second paper details the qualities that children with dragon parents need. The paper explains the behaviors and actions the dragon parents will and would have with their kin, Tatsuma said. Objection. The prosecution is rambling. 14 years ago, Midoriya-san lost full custody of her son because she tried to keep Izuku away from his father, with the excuse she couldn't stand seeing her baby boy constantly getting burned from his father's flames, even knowing that the flames were helping her son grow and stay alive. The judge slammed down their gavel to get the courtroom to settle down as it erupted in shocked whispers. Order in the courtroom. Prosecution, what is the meaning of this? Midoriya-san has tried to fool the courtroom before by playing as an over-concerned parent. She has tried 2 times already to keep Ryuko-san away from their child. So without a clear confession from Midoriya-san, I just thought it would be wise to warn the court that she might try and say that she was doing what any other mother would do to save their child. So tell me, Midoriya-san, how many mothers do you know would keep their child away from the basic needs that they know they need to survive and grow? Inko remained silent. There was no way now that she could pull off the caring parent act now. She was trapped in the way that Tatsuma was looking at her. Inko was not going to win this case. Tell us, Midoriya-san, what type of mother does that to their child? Tatsuma said. Inko glared at her. I can. A neglectful type of parent. So why do this? Why be so obsessed with keeping Ryuko-san away from his son? Why? Especially when Ryuko-san gave you a chance to spend time with him unsupervised on weekends, Tatsuma said. Silence. Midoriya-san, answer the question, the judge said. Could it be that you were obsessed with being the better parent? Tatsuma said. Inko laughed. Izuku never wanted nothing to do with me, she said. He absolutely adored his father, and everyone could tell that it wasn't an obsession. Inko glared at Hisashi. At a young age, you took his heart, Hisashi. You had his full attention. And you wouldn't pay attention to me he wouldn't pay attention to me or what I asked him to do. I only wanted Izuku to be a science experiment to see if a dragon child could survive without knowing that the missing parent was part dragon. I believe they were abandoned. Somehow, I had him believe that All Might was his favorite hero, and then you debuted as Torch. On the international level, trying to find him. All Might was still his favorite hero, unless you were involved. Inko was no longer speaking to the court, as she had just focused on Hisashi. Hisashi had smoke coming out of his nostrils, and he was angry. He was angry at her that his precious son, his precious fluffy mint ball, was just born for her to test something so despicable. You're an exception. Aren't you the luckiest of all, Hisashi? Inko said with a laugh. Huh. Jenny. Hi, baby. Good girl. Okay, anyways. Hisashi got up and left the courtroom. He could see the smoke becoming darker, and the itchy burning flame at the back of his throat got stronger. He had to calm down before he did something he regretted. He didn't see the shock and angry stare that Mitsuki Bakugo was giving Inko, or the tear-stained face of her husband. Hisashi really needed his minty cuddles, but he had to see this through. So 1. Time was before he was born. 2 was from Izuku being born till he was 2, and you had to follow the court order. Then 3, from Izuku being 4 till now. You did all of this for an experiment? By now, would you agree that you're the only enemy, Inko? Would you also agree that the reason why his quirk came in so late, why his bones were so easily broken, why he seemed to he's so malnourished was because you're the only reason why he wasn't with his father. Even knowing prior to being pregnant over how much a dragonlet needs a dragon parent, Tatsuma said, letting the fury in her voice. No child deserves to be used or even be born just to be a science experiment. Everyone in Japan knows that you do not get on the wrong side of the pro-hero principle. Not with his past being what it is, but everyone also knows how lucky they are that he did not go villain mode. What hardly anyone knows is that the principal does have connections to villains, including All Might's rival. Nezu and All for One decided it would be best to temporarily cut the relationship as tea and chest buddies, so Yagi wouldn't try to pull Midoriya away when they both wanted him to grow. Nezu has always favored Midoriya as a student of his, and All for One because Midoriya now held his brother's quirk. Nezu was going to talk to All for One tonight, because Inko Midoriya did not deserve a hero. No. She deserved the darkest of people to carry out her punishment. If I told you everyone in the League of Villains about you, a rumor just for fun then, Nezu thought, I'll just wait a week, and I'm sure you'll be gone, especially since Compressed Toga, Dabi, and Spinner all love Midoriya. Hisashi couldn't believe it. He passed. He got his teaching license, and now he's a teacher's assistant for UA. Soon he'll be a full-fledged teacher at UA, and now he can spend more time with his precious son. Not only that, but Tatsuma called, and they won. Inko Midoriya will be spending the rest of her life in jail. She can't come near her son ever again. She lost all of her rights as a parent, so if she somehow became pregnant again, she wouldn't get to keep the child or make any decisions over their health. Now, he just needs to find an apartment for them during the breaks, and introduce himself to Izuku's friends and classmates. But now he just wants to celebrate with Izuku. Hisashi walked out of the dorms that he's been staying at and made his way towards the Class 1A dorms. School was almost done for the day, and he waited to greet Izuku with the good news. Was Izuku really worth all the things I did to get here? Yes. Yes, Izuku was worth it all. This is my second chance at being a father. I've missed out on 12 years of being a father and friend, or am I just obsessive over Izuku? If I am, it's not my fault. I'm just following instincts of keeping Izuku close, after all. It was so close to death. The dragon in me is just protective. We can't help it after all. I spent 12 years helping other families reunite, giving children a good home, Hisashi thought. He stood in front of Class 1A dorms, bouncing on the balls of his feet and tail. Tonight should be all about celebrating, so he pulled his phone out and redialed his sister's number. Hisashi, Tatsuma said as she answered the phone. I think we should celebrate tonight. And I think it's safe for you to finally introduce yourself to Izuku as his aunt. I haven't talked to him yet, but either way I want to introduce Izuku to his aunt and maybe his aunt's boyfriend, Hisashi said. I would also like to meet the man behind the hero edge shot. Hisashi, do you really mean it? Tatsuma said, excitement in her voice. Yes, Tats. I mean, look at the scums without a charm that we both took down trying to find Izuku. Look at the tears of who we've saved. We are both heroes. We both know little 4-year-old Izuku would be proud of us, so yeah, this is what I want. Tatsuma laughed. Just text me where we are having supper tonight, and we'll be there, she said. I will. Hisashi said as he spied Izuku walking towards the Class 1A dorm. He was in between a boy with blue hair and glasses, and a young girl with rosy cheeks, another girl with long dark green hair, and a boy with red and white hair. I spy my fluffy mint. So I need to go tell him the news. See you tonight. He hung up and put his phone away just as the girl with earphone jacks asked the girl with rosy cheeks a question. He ran towards the group at full speed. He was surprised that a lot of the students noticed him, but he was faster. Just as the fire came at him, he grabbed Izuku with his tail and tossed him in the air. Izuku laughed as he was in the air, and with a childlike laugh, "Woo, yeah!" Izuku said. He was on a roller coaster. Hisashi dodged the Bakugo kid's blast. A kick came from a couple of students as daggers before he caught Izuku in his arms. His heart fluttered at the giggles his son gave as he was caught. 1, 2, 3, Hisashi said before throwing Izuku back in the air. He used his tail to catch Izuku as he came back down. We won, Fluffy Mint. You are stuck with me now, so would you agree to allow me to introduce you to your aunt formally? I would love to, Izuku said. Midoriya, how do you know this mountain man? A pink-skinned girl said, Mina Ashido. Would you also agree that Inko's the only enemy? Hisashi said, pressing his forehead against Izuku's own forehead. Huh? What the hell did you say about Auntie, you overgrown gecko? Bakugo yelled, exploding forward only to be pushed back by a green lightning strike. And she's the only reason why you're not with me as a Ryuko, Hisashi said. So would you be willing to change your last name back to Ryuko? I've been waiting for you to ask me for a week, Izuku said. Wait, is All Might really not your father? The dual-colored haired boy said. Izuku laughed as Hisashi let him down. No, Todoroki, he isn't. This is my father, who I've met for the first time in 12 years a couple of months ago, Izuku said. Ah, Hisashi said. So you're Todoroki. Tell me, what would happen if I told you everyone with the right connections and powers, a rumor just for fun about Endeavor, a rumor that might destroy his reputation? What would you do? Celebrate. Why? Todoroki said. Then wait a week, and I'm sure you'll be gone, Hisashi said. His toxic green eyes narrowed as his tail coiled up. His tail uncoiled quickly, pinning a tiny. He's pretty sure Eri was taller than the student boy that had grapes for hair to the ground. You did not just try to peek up the pink skin tone girl's skirt, right? Hisashi said with a growl, green flames curling upwards past his snout as the pink-skinned girl let out a yell and went behind Midoriya. No, I I would never, the boy said, struggling to try to escape the tail. I can smell the lies coming off of you, boy, Hisashi said. He used his tail to pick up the great boy and held him at Hisashi's eye level. Just wait a week and I'm sure you'll be gone. Nedzu took a sip of his tea as he watched Hisashi drop Mineta almost 8 feet. Yes, hiring Ryuko Hisashi, former international hero Torch, as a soon-to-be hero for UA. Soon-to-be teacher for UA was the right move, not only to keep his students safe, but to make a statement to other hero schools and to the villains that staff at UA will always do its best to keep their students safe. Nedzu took another sip, especially since the League of Villains have a new target in a country outside of Japan. A specific institution of science that not only did a certain Inko Midoriya graduate from, but also worked for. This tea is absolutely divine, Nedzu said to his empty office with a sadistic hum. That is the end of, You'll Be Gone by RDM Fave Clips. I'll try, putting in the song that inspired this work in like the description or like at the very least the comments, so you guys can like listen to it or whatever. Second thing is, I want to apologize for any distractions, for all of the distractions that I had throughout the reading. This took me quite a while because I took like a minor break in between it and then went back at it later on, like right after it started raining. I didn't realize it started raining then. There's a random sound in the background that is like really high and whistly, like metal, like a metal pipe being blown through, and like it's really high and it annoys me. I'm sorry, it's giving me a headache. I have heartburn. But no, really, thank you for listening to this reading of You'll Be Gone by RDM Fave Clips. And thank you for everyone that subscribed to me. I'm not exactly sure the exact amount because I'm like recording this a week in advance because I just read as I can and then just post everything in one go at like late Friday evening or like Saturday and Sunday if I don't post. Part 2 of, by the way, if I ever like go on an unannounced hiatus, it's either because schoolwork is getting really messy or my phone's been taken, or mayhaps 2 years from now, me moving and starting a new life in another state. Joking, I'm not joking. Bye.